Welcome to the Liberated Women podcast. I'm so excited that you are tuning in once again for some more nuggets of feminine wisdom. To those of you that tune in every single episode, I am so grateful for your community. I'm so grateful for your support, and I'm so grateful that you're here to be with me and to be in my world and to listen to what I have to say and what my guests have to say. It really means the world to me that you are here and taking part in this liberation of the feminine by being in this space. Thank you. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you about the upcoming 3-week journey that I'm going to be holding starting on October the 15th, called Soul on Fire. I am so excited for all the women who have already jumped in and said a huge heaven yes to being part of this container. Soul on Fire was literally birthed through my soul essence, because I know that as an awakening woman, as a woman living in this patriarchal world, you have so many desires that live within you, but for some reason, it's difficult for you to access them. It could be because you've been met with resistance of what others might think of you if you actually live the life that you truly desire. Whether it's that you want to leave the corporate job that you're in and be a stay-at-home mom and you feel like you're going to be shamed for that, or whether it's that you really want to be in a certain type of relationship, but you're worried about what your family might say about you, whether your sole desire is to go and see more of the world, or whether it really is as simple as owning a vegetable patch and just spending your days in a relaxed state, tending to your vegetables and providing for your family. Whatever your soul desire is, they live within you for a reason, and you came here to this planet at this time with gifts that want to be birthed into the world, and that other people need your magic. They need your gifts and your soul essence to be as true as possible so that you can shine your light out into the world. And that has a ripple effect on your partnerships, your family, your children, your community, your colleagues, your friends, whoever is in your sphere of influence. And so Soul on Fire will take you on a 3-week journey to tune into what might be stopping you, or the resistances and the blocks that might be stopping you from tuning really deeply into what your soul desires and tapping into what they might actually be and what it is that you came here to do at this time. We've got an opening ceremony, a closing ceremony, and a breathwork session, which will all take place live on Zoom. And then you'll be part of a Telegram group with daily drop-ins and tasks that will help you and support you on this journey to awaken your soul and set it on fire. The start date is October the 15th. The price goes up from a mere £111, which is a total steal. I'm never going to be running it at this price point ever again. So the price goes up to $222 on October the 8th. So if you are listening to this and you're like, I want to get in, I want to be part of this amazing 3-week container, then please go ahead and sign up, get your tushy in there now before the price goes up. And I can't wait to welcome you in. In today's episode, I'm going to be diving into why rebirthing breathwork is such a powerful tool for your wild liberation. I'm going to break this episode down because there's just so much to say about this healing modality that I have been facilitating for a number of years now, that I'll probably do a couple of podcast episodes on this so that you don't get all of the information at once. I'm going to really start with my journey with breathwork and how it helped me. And I'm going to touch upon rebirthing and what it means. And know that if you join for the 3-week Soul on Fire challenge, you will get a rebirthing breathwork journey as part of that journey. And you'll get to experience an actual breathwork journey with me as well. So I first found transformational breathwork with my breathworker when I was going through my spiritual awakening, and I was living in Israel at the time, and I was deeply in my freeze trauma response. You've probably heard me say this quite a number of times now in different podcast episodes and on my Instagram page, that I spent a lot of my time living my life in a freeze trauma response from a really bad car accident that I had, where I had to be cut out of the car. and from the recovery of a very abusive relationship that I then had to take to court and deal with a whole bunch of stuff related to that. So my trauma response was freeze. And that affected me in a whole variety of ways, from not being able to make decisions, to struggling to trust myself, to blaming myself for making poor choices in my life, even though they weren't really my fault. And not being able to really move my body and being really stuck in a space of freeze. And when I was in Israel, that came up a lot for me, that I was really unable to move my body. And it was scary, to be perfectly honest. Like I really struggled to understand why I couldn't move my body. And it was like, simple as like I couldn't dance when I would go out, or I really struggled to move myself in an exercise class, or when it came to intimacy in my relationship at the time. And someone recommended to me that I go for some breathwork sessions. So I found this amazing breathworker who I'm still in touch with now. We still communicate with each other on a regular basis. And I went for my first session. And she, we spoke, she coached me through some things, and I laid down for the breathwork. And I started to breathe in this conscious, connected way, which is essentially continuous breath without a pause between the inhale and the exhale. And as I started to breathe, I started to feel sensations in my body, and I started to feel emotions and memories coming up that I had suppressed and I hadn't had access to up until this point through any kind of talking therapy or coaching that I'd received or counseling that I'd received. And in that first session, I remember just still feeling very, very frozen in my body, but knowing that there was an energetic movement happening inside. I was very early on in my spiritual awakening. I didn't understand the level of energy work and healing that I do now, or that I'm able to bring to the table with my clients, because at that time, I was just very new to this whole journey and this whole process. And I was just kind of curious and experimenting and trying to understand what was going on in my body, and trying to understand how I could heal the parts of myself that were frozen and in a lot of numbness and in a lot of avoidance. And I remember in that first session, just feeling that energy flowing through, but still not being able to cry, still not really being able to move my body fully, and still feeling that state of kind of freeze. And I think it took me around 4 sessions. And I think I had at least like 20 or 30 sessions with her over the few months that I worked with her. It was around session 4 or 5 that it was the first time that I felt rage coming up in my body, the emotion of rage. And at that point, then my body started to move. And then I released my voice for the first time, because those of you that have been watching my Instagram posts or my stories will know that I was selectively mute for quite a number of years after my abusive relationship, because I was so emotionally abused. I was so shut down that I actually couldn't speak for a really long time. And my voice is my power, and I love to use my voice now. And it's taken me a lot of years to work on being able to express myself and to be heard. And that really is why I am so passionate about women being seen, heard, and witnessed, because I know the years of oppression and silencing that women have had. I've experienced it in my lifetime. I've experienced it in past lifetimes. I've seen my family go through it, and I've seen many of my friends go through it too. And I know that so many women really struggle to express their voice and to feel heard. And in this particular breathwork session, I finally released my voice. And I remember crying and shouting and yelling and screaming, and finally having the place to do that and know that I was going to be held through that by the facilitator. And it was after that that I started to be able to tune into the movements of my body and started to feel my body again. And I had to learn to really trust my body. And it was really through this breathwork journey that I started to liberate myself and to come back into a place where, I could go to an ecstatic dance experience and actually be able to move my body and not be frozen to the spot without judging myself. or I was able to find a deeper sense of intimacy with myself and other people and my partner in the world, and to learn to trust that actually my intuition has always been spot on. It's just that I ignored it for so long. And that's what led me to be in these really difficult, damaging situations. And so it was learning to come back into trust with my body, with my feelings, with my emotions, and being able to liberate the movement, the like physical movement within my body. And so, you know, after this journey of several sessions with my breathworker, I just knew that I had to train to be a breathwork facilitator. And the stars aligned for me to go to India to train to be a rebirthing breathwork facilitator. And I found myself in Rishikesh in March of 2020, where a very strong channeled voice had said to me in November 2019, you need to leave Israel and you need to leave by March. It was a very clear message, and the stars aligned for me to find my breathwork training in India starting on the 6th of March. So there I was at the beginning of my training, still fairly new to my whole process, but definitely way more awake than I had been, more in tune, more connected, more deeply understanding of energy, of spirit, of God, of source, of the breath, of how this is your life force energy. And the thing that fascinates me the most about rebirthing breathwork specifically is that we touch upon what's known as the birth script. So your birth script is not the same as your birth story. Your birth story might be things like when your mum said to you, oh, you were such a huge baby. It took me ages to push you out. I thought I'd never get you out. Or your birth story might be like, oh, it was the most magical moment when they put you in my arms and I saw you for the first time and I met you for the first time. That might be the birth story. The birth script is the moment of your conception to the time during your time in the womb to your actual birth and how you came into the world, and how this affects the patterns of behavior that you might experience or the way that you navigate your way through the world. And this is what I find the most fascinating as someone who works with ancestral healing, as somebody who works with past life trauma, as somebody who works with energy that is passed down through your lineage, particularly through the mother line. This part of rebirthing breathwork absolutely fascinates me, because when you start to dig into how you came into this world and how that then affects your patterns of behavior, you can understand so much about why you might have triggers around certain things, why you might react to certain things in certain ways, and why you might find certain things a struggle and why you might find certain things really easy. So I'm going to focus today on this particular part of rebirthing, and then I will do a whole other podcast episode on the journey of the breath itself and how that can be part of your wild liberation. And I've already touched upon my breathwork sessions with my breathworker and how they helped me to support, you know, my journey into liberation. But for today, I really want to focus on this concept of the birth script and how this can help to liberate you. And it's something that I will talk about in Soul on Fire when we do our online breathwork journey together, because it could really be part of the reason that you have resistance to connecting to certain desires that are living in the seat of your soul, but your soul has been lost or fragmented, or there have been stories passed down to you through your lineage, through ancestry, that are actually stopping you from living your truth and living in your soul essence. And your soul is you. Like, you come to this world as a soul in a human form. It is the truth of your innocence. It's your organic self. It's who you were before all of the imprints and all of the stories passed down to you throughout your life. And this starts, well, before conception, but if we're looking at the birth script, it starts at conception. So a baby who is conceived in a beautiful, conscious, connected relationship, you know, it was a decision to conceive. There was love in the room. Parents really love each other, connect with each other, have an intention to bring a soul, a life into this world. That baby is going to have a completely different imprint at a cellular level to a baby, and I'm going to use an extreme example here to show you the polar opposites, but a baby who was brought into this world through sexual assault or rape or abuse. Those two babies are going to have completely different imprints in their cellular system of their conception. Then there is the time during utero, during the womb. So if you are someone, for example, like me, whose mother lost a baby before you were conceived. So my mum lost a child before she had me. She gave birth to a child that then unfortunately didn't survive. And during that time, she herself suffered with a lot of trauma. She hemorrhaged, she bled, and she had to go into hospital for quite some time and be on IV drips. And that was a big trauma for her, as well as losing the baby. She almost lost her own life. And I was next in the womb. And so this has had a huge imprint on me, because on a whole different variety of levels, I came in after a baby that wasn't seen. Right. And I've had this big thing around being seen, heard, and witnessed all my life. And it's my life's passion, as I said, to ensure that women are seen, heard, and witnessed. And so it's been this huge thing for me around ensuring that women are seen. And there was a point in my life where I really didn't feel seen by my dad. And I asked my mum, was there anyone in our family that wasn't seen? And I tuned into the spirit of the baby that had died. And I asked her, did you ever get to see the baby? And she said, no, they took him away before either of us could see him. And in that moment, I knew on a spiritual level that baby was essentially stopping me from being seen by my dad. And I had to sit down and do some soul retrieval around that baby and essentially say, like, no, you don't get to stop me from being seen just because you weren't. The baby was called Daniel. I had two very toxic relationships with men, both called Daniel, who told me that they loved my energy because of my mothering energy. And again, that was a huge no for me. And when I was with them, I got very unwell both times. Two different Daniels. I got extremely sick. And it felt like they were leeching energy off of me. And I knew it was connected to that baby that had passed away. And again, I had to do a lot of soul retrieval on that. So that's kind of like on an energetic, spiritual level. But then also I was a planned cesarean baby because my mum had lost a baby before me. She was obviously had anxiety. She told me that she wanted to have a natural birth with me, but the doctors told her not to be so ridiculous, and that if she wanted to survive this next birth, because she didn't think she'd be able to have another baby, that she should have a planned cesarean. So I was a planned cesarean baby. Therefore, I came into the world at a time that was not my sovereign choice. Somebody else planned the time of my birth for me. I didn't choose when I came into the world. And part of my pattern of behavior, and this is probably something you might recognize if you were a planned cesarean baby or a cesarean baby, or you were induced, and again, you didn't come in at the time that you decided, you might have an unconscious resentment to being to places on time. So people who are induced babies are usually extremely anxious and like to be places very early. And someone like me who came at a time that I didn't choose, I have a huge resentment around being somewhere at the time that somebody else tells me to be at, because it's like a secret rebellion, like, F you, I didn't get to choose the time I came in. You don't tell me when I get to be at what place at what time. So I'm usually like 2 to 3 minutes late for everything as a silent rebellion. And you might recognize that. And that's part of my birth script that I've really had to work through. And there are so many other parts of the birth script that affect the way that you behave. So I've had a lot of experience with like avoidance, numbness, and frozenness, right? As I've explained before. When I did my doula training and we spoke about epidurals, my whole body numbed out in that moment, and I collapsed on the sofa and literally I like zoned out for about 10 minutes. And when I came back to, I said, whoa, have we finished talking about epidurals? And they were like, yeah, we've moved on. And I was like, wow, my mum must have had an epidural with me. And an epidural, it's when they put the needle in the spine to numb the pain. And I felt the numbness in my cellular system at that point, like that I'd been numbed out. And so of course I've had numbing out in my life and avoidance and numbness and frozenness, because I was numbed out before I was given, like before my mum gave birth to me, I was numbed out, right? She was numbed out, I was numbed out. So this leaves energetic imprints on you. Your birth script leaves energetic imprints on you that affect the way that you navigate through the world. And then when we go through the breathwork journey, we explore some of these vows or these, lies that you've told yourself about the way that you have to operate through life because of the way that you came into this world. There are so many different examples of different birth scripts. And with each one-to-one client that I have, I ask them to have that conversation, if they can, with their mother to explore their own birth script so that we can work with that during the sessions and see what those vows that they took and the beliefs that you are subconsciously holding onto because of your birth script, and then rewriting that script throughout the breathwork sessions. So I'm going to do a whole other episode on the breathwork sessions themselves and the journey and how that can help you to be liberated. Today, I really wanted to focus on that birth script because I find it fascinating that when we actually explore that from an ancestral healing perspective, and we look at what happened to you during the womb, which was your literal formation of your soul essence, this is why we can then start to understand why you might have certain triggers in the world, why you might navigate the life that you live in a certain way, why you might struggle. For example, like me, with a planned cesarean baby in a hospital, obviously when I came out, there were like bright lights, loud noises, people talking. There was no, sacredness around it at all. And I really struggle with loud noises and bright lights. I struggle to be in spaces where there's lots going on around me. And I've actually had an experience at a festival where the music was playing and the laser lights were going and there was a lot of people in the room. And I closed my eyes and I had a bit of a panic and I could just see my birth, like the doctors talking, the loud noises, the lights. All I could hear was at this festival was like, I could hear people tuning in to talking. I could tune in only to people talking about drugs, even though it was a sober festival. And I was like, oh my God, it's like the doctors talking about the drugs they're giving to my mom so that I can be born. And it was a real moment of really understanding what my birth was like and actually how traumatic that was for me as a baby. And your birth can leave such a huge imprint on you, not forgetting that the first thing that you do when you're born is take a breath. I'm going to leave it there so that I can continue talking to you about the actual breath work in another podcast episode. But if you are curious to know more about this, you can join up for Soul on Fire because we start October the 15th and the link will be in the show notes. You can also come and join me for a monthly breathwork session, which I always hold every month online. So you can join me from wherever you are in the world. And if you're curious to dive into your own personal birth script and explore more about how that affects your patterns of behavior, you can sign up for one-to-one sessions with me, one-to-one journeys with me, where we'll explore that in a much deeper way and then work to clear that through the power of the breath. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Liberated Women podcast. I'm really, really grateful that you listened today. Get yourself in Soul on Fire. Come and experience a breathwork session with me, either online or as a group session online or as a one-to-one client where we can dive deeper into your birth script. Until next week, have a magical, magical day.